Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Amanda Ziadeh with WashingtonExec, and with me today to discuss some key federal cybersecurity strategies is Lauren Zabierek, Senior Advisor of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency's Cybersecurity Division. Thank you so much for being here today, Lauren.
Thanks, Amanda. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Of course. So, Lauren, I want to start by asking if you can tell us a bit about your role at CISA and what you're currently focused on.
Absolutely. I'm a senior advisor to our Executive Assistant Director, Eric Goldstein, who runs the Cybersecurity Division. And that essentially means that I get to work on a number of different projects that not only align with our cybersecurity strategic plan, but all the way up through the national cyber strategy. And specifically, I'm focused on a couple different things: secure by design, standing up the Cyber Response and Recovery Fund program, and a couple of other internal projects.
Wonderful. So let's dive deeper into Secure by Design. I understand it was announced in October that CISA, along with 17 U.S. international partners, published an update to its Secure by Design principles. So can you give us a brief overview of these updated guidelines, what it means for software developers and the government and its partners?
Definitely. So I think it's important to just, quickly go over what secure by design really means. And that essentially means that technology is designed and built in such a way that reasonably protects against malicious cyber actors successfully gaining access to devices, to data, and to connected infrastructure. And really, ultimately, that means safety for the public. So as you mentioned, we just published an updated guidance for our Secure by Design, released in October. The first one was back in April, but based on feedback, which we went out and we tried to get as much feedback as possible, and we continue to do that, we wanted to dive deeper into the three principles and explore the additional tactics that software manufacturers could undertake on their journeys toward designing security into their products. And really, we hope that this guidance provides more clarity to software manufacturers and customers alike so that they can articulate their demand for more secure products from their vendors. And also, I wanted to note that the principles themselves are aimed at business leaders because they're the ones making their decisions for their companies based on what to prioritize, incentivize, and commit resources toward. But again, there are also more tactics and guidelines for the developers as well. So again, hoping that it provides more clarity and ease of use for manufacturers.
Wonderful. So what are the benefits of Secure by Design? Or in other words, why is it so critical? What problems is it helping to solve?
Yeah, in a word, I would say safety. So think about the automobile industry back in the 1950s and the 1960s, when cars were designed for speed and for style, not safety. And of course, this unfortunately resulted in tens of thousands of deaths per year, at its height. And, until manufacturers were forced to make safety a priority. And if you really look at the rate of deaths and horrific injuries during that period, they plummeted because of those safety measures that were built in. But it also means increased productivity, increased bandwidth, space for more innovation, and being less reactive to different attacks and disruptions. So we want to do essentially the same thing with software and hardware, to make it so that manufacturers design the products with safety and security as a stated business priority, so that the impact from cyber attacks do not have detrimental and costly effects on our daily lives, our critical services, and our institutions. And really, more secure software will result in increased safety, better services, and better care, and increased resilience to attacks and disruptions. So, as an example, hospitals won't have to divert care because of a cyber breach, right? Or water systems wouldn't be at risk of disruption because of a cyber attack. Or even our education for our kids won't be disrupted, by getting their systems locked up by ransomware. So ultimately, that's the kind of world that we envision with this.
So Lauren, how can Secure by Design or its approach be utilized? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So people might notice that in our updated guidance in October, it grew, right, to about 36 pages. And so in that, we're providing additional guidelines and tactics and approaches that software manufacturers and customers, can look for. And these tactics all align with our 3 principles that we outline in the paper. These are also geared towards the product side as well as the business side. So I'll give you some examples. So for the first principle, where we state that vendors should take ownership of security outcomes for their customers, we give examples such as conduct field tests, try to eliminate hardening guides, which are essentially those guides that you get as a customer to help make your product even more secure, right? We think that that shouldn't happen. It should already come secure out of the box. Or things like implementing alerts when a product is in an unsafe configuration. Think seat belts, right? When you don't have your seatbelt clicked in, right, you start to get chimes in your car, you're in an unsafe mode. Let me remind you to fix that. Our second principle is to embrace radical transparency and accountability. Some examples of that include ensuring that vulnerability records are complete and include the root cause analysis in that companies are recording statistics and trends on patching and maybe even things like unused privileges, and that companies are conducting internal controls and self-attestations. And then our third and final principle is to lead from the top. So build that organizational structure and leadership around those priorities. And so some examples there include naming a senior executive who is in charge of security, right? Not just on the security team, but an executive on the leadership team. Ensuring that structures and incentives and resources are aligned towards that. And of course, even including that in your annual financial reports.
So what is next in the Secure by Design guideline process? How is CISA planning for its evolution?
Well, we will continue to receive feedback from the community. We want to continue to iterate upon this. We know that this is dynamic, things evolve. And we'll look to release additional guidance and best practices that are truly outcome-based. We will continue to engage with researchers to help us identify data that can really help us to understand costs and risk and how the attacks actually happen and hopefully to even measure outcomes. And we'll also work with companies to adopt these practices over time. So a lot more work ahead, of course, but we're really excited and optimistic about it.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us better understand Secure by Design and its new guidelines. Appreciate you being here.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Of course.